Welcome to Upleveling, the podcast dedicated to building better leaders, smarter systems, and bigger results. I'm your host, Joy Lutz, and we're going to dive into the mindset, strategies, and operations that drive business success. Whether you're scaling your business, refining your leadership skills, or optimizing your systems, this podcast is here to help you take the next step. So let's get started. What makes the most successful CEOs different? Is it intelligence, a high IQ, years of experience? Actually, it's none of those things. It's their ability to make fast decisions, leverage their time, and lead with clarity. In this very first episode, we're breaking down the traits that separate the top CEOs from everyone else. Because let's be honest, we're not here to be average. If you're a business owner and you want to scale or build a strong team, drive profitability, all of those things, these traits are going to be the key to your success. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a clear roadmap of what to focus on to up-level as a CEO and lead your business with confidence. Trait number 1, they make fast decisions. One of the biggest mistakes business owners make is overthinking. The best CEOs are not necessarily the smartest in the room. They're the ones who make decisions quickly and confidently. Now, I'm not saying go out there and just start rattling off new plans and changes, but what I'm saying is you need to learn how to make quicker decisions. The key is to asking yourself, what information do I need right now to make this decision? Gather that information, then decide. If you sit on a decision for 6 months, you're losing momentum and opportunity. And guess what? Someone else is going to beat you to that. Because here's the reality. Indecision is a decision, and it usually costs you money, time, and traction. So just remember, when you're doing nothing and you're putting things off, you're deciding to do nothing. And that's not going to get you ahead. That is not going to up-level your business. If you sit on a decision for 6 months, you're losing momentum and opportunity. And somebody else is going to beat you to the market. Because here's the reality. Indecision is a decision. And it usually costs you money, time, and traction. And I'm sure you can think of a time when this happened. A time when you didn't make a decision, and a couple months later you look back and thought, I wish I would have solved this much sooner, because more than likely at that time, it was a much smaller issue than what it is now. Let's think about CEOs who move really quickly. A great example of this was during COVID. Others weren't doing things and they weren't pivoting, but there were some companies that just jumped right on and made pivots. A great example is Netflix. During COVID, they started launching international shows that had already been filmed. They started more animated content, which was easier to produce without contact. And they marketed older shows aggressively. They took content they already had and just reintroduced it to the market. Another great example is Uber. Uber started as rideshare, and during COVID, they pivoted to Uber Eats. And now that is one of their core revenue streams. So I'm going to give you an actionable tip. I want you to start setting time limits for decisions. Most business decisions, give yourself 24 to 48 hours. Make the call, adjust if needed, but keep moving forward. Trait number 2, they value their time above all else. If you're doing everything in your business, you're doing it wrong, period. The most successful CEOs know that their time is their most valuable asset. Your job as a CEO is not to be in the weeds of daily operations. It's to drive strategy, vision, and growth. If you're stuck in client work or admin tasks or replying to emails, you're putting out fires all day long, you're holding your business back. Look at any CEO who has scaled successfully. They've got there by leveraging their time. They've hired the right team. They've outsourced low-level tasks, and they focus on activities that are going to generate the highest ROI. So what I want you to do is take 10 minutes today and list out everything you're currently doing in your business. And let's be real, it's probably going to take more than 10 minutes. But then highlight anything on that list that does not require your expertise or your zone of genius, and then delegate it. Whether that's to an employee, a contractor, or automation, free up your time for work that's actually going to move the needle. Everything else, someone else can do. Trait number 3, they have a clear vision and share it with their team. A company without a clear vision is like a ship with no compass. It's just going to drift. But the most successful CEOs, they have a crystal clear vision for where they're going, and they communicate it relentlessly. They don't assume that their team just knows the direction or they just know what's going on. They paint a picture, they make it tangible, they get everyone on board, and they keep talking about it. I've seen businesses completely transform just by getting clear on their vision. One CEO I worked with was stuck in a cycle of reacting to problems. When we helped him define a clear, measurable vision, suddenly decision-making got easier. His team felt aligned and they started hitting their targets faster. If everyone on your team is going in different directions, you're never going to get to where you want to go. But more than likely that's happening because they don't know where you're going. You have to communicate this relentlessly. And here's the thing that I see in business is if you start to improve one of these traits, it's going to help you improve in all other areas. If you're clear on where you're going and you're making decisions and you're making fast decisions, it's going to become easier and hopefully quicker. I want you to write down your company's vision in one sentence. And then, here's the kicker, share it with your team this week and reinforce it every single time you can. One of the things we do at Aligned is our monthly team meetings always start with our vision and examples of our core values, how we're living them. Vision may be so clear in your head, but if you're not talking about it regularly, I guarantee you your team has forgotten it. And so it's your job to make sure they remember what's the vision and where are we headed. Trait number 4, they dedicate time to work on their business, not just in it. If you're constantly working in your business, you're handling the operations, you're responding to emails, you're fixing problems, you're never going to scale. The best CEOs carve out time every week to step back, think strategically, and then work on the bigger picture. You are what you focus on. If your days are filled with reactive work, you'll stay in the grind forever. But if you're intentionally setting aside time to focus on growth, you'll build a business that runs without you. And that's the goal here. We want to build something that runs without you. We're not saying that we're going to eliminate your role and you're not going to have anything to do, because let's be real, if you're a business owner, it's because you like having things to do. But what we're saying is we're going to grow a business that you could sell if you wanted to. We want to have the option. But I know your first thought in all of this is, I don't have time. Spoiler alert, we all have the same amount of time in a day or in a week. And if others can do it, why not you? The best tip I can give you is to start blocking out a CEO day, or at least start with a half a day a week. No meetings, no client work, just time to focus on your strategy, planning, and business development. I would bet that the value that comes out of that time will uplevel your business. Trait number 5. They're not afraid to ask for feedback. This is going to be really hard, but I promise it's going to be rewarding. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. The best CEOs can put their ego aside and seek feedback from their team, their clients, and their mentors. And why is this so important? Because blind spots are what kill businesses. If you don't know where you're falling short, you can't improve. And we're looking for continuous improvement. I recently worked with a business that was really struggling with employee turnover. And the CEO finally sent out an anonymous survey asking, what's one thing I could improve as a leader? The responses were so eye-opening and nothing that was even on his radar. It was nothing that he even thought were issues. But he was able to make these key adjustments. And guess what? Employee retention skyrocketed. But listen, sometimes it's really going to suck to hear these things. But from what I've experienced as a CEO, the things that hurt the most are usually true. And we need to know these things so we can make positive changes. So again, we're going to put our ego aside and we're going to ask the question. But also just kind of keep in mind that getting feedback from your team is going to be tricky because honestly, if they don't trust you, they won't give feedback. You have to build that trust. If you already know that this is going to be a struggle, I highly recommend reading the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. This book is so good. It's actually so good that we have new employees read it when we onboard them at Align CPA. Because I want to go ahead and immediately start building trust with those team members so that down the road they can bring me that feedback. Or down the road they can give feedback to other team members in a constructive way. Those are the things that are going to move the business forward. So if this is something that you know that you need to do, I really recommend sending out a simple anonymous, make sure it's anonymous, survey to your team. Ask them, what's one thing I could do to improve as a leader? Because you might be really surprised by what you learn. Trait number 6, they make data-driven decisions with a little intuition. You can't hit revenue goals if you don't know where you're at. And the best CEOs track their numbers religiously, and they're going to use that data to guide decisions. Every goal that you have should have a metric attached to it, because without numbers, you're just guessing. One business I worked with was really struggling to grow, and when we looked at their numbers, it turned out that their pricing was too low, and their customer acquisition cost was too high. Those two things combined together are going to be really hard to overcome if you're ignoring them and you don't know what they are. But once we were able to start tracking KPIs around these things, we could adjust real decision making, and then we have data. And guess what? This company's profitability doubled in 6 months. So the key here, though, is to make sure you have accurate data. And when I say data, most of this is financial. Some of it, or probably the other big section of it, is going to be marketing related. So, what is your cost to get a customer? What is your ad spend compared to your revenue? These types of things. You have to know this data. And I'm going to be really honest, in today's world, with the technology and information at our fingertips, there's no reason your business should not have accurate financial data. But I want you to start to ask yourself, what information do I need to make decisions? Then seek it out. Let's not forget about our intuition either. I mentioned that kind of in the title of the trait. This can get a little woo-woo, but that's okay, because you really need to balance data and intuition, because the experiences that you've had to get you to this level, you need to make sure that you're learned from those and you're taking that learning and that knowledge into your future decision making. But let's kind of think a little bit. I do want to talk about what is intuition. I mentioned like it's a little woo-woo, which honestly is not true, but it feels that way. Especially, I've worked with hundreds of business owners. There's a difference in the way that male business owners and female business owners operate. And I would say that if you can lean into your intuition a little more, a little better, that is going to serve you well. Recently, my mentor, Layla Hormozy, she discussed intuition, and I just thought it was a really good description. I'd never really heard it described this way. But she said, your intuition is usually from a memory or an experience that you went through, and you're remembering the feelings around that, but your brain can't quite put the finger on what the memory is. And in her example, it was one where she met someone and you kind of think to yourself, hey, this guy, there's something off. He doesn't really sit with me very well. That feeling's because that person reminds you of someone you've come across in your past that did not sit well with you, but you can't really remember who. I just thought that was the best example I've ever heard someone give on intuition, because that's really, really what it is an experience that you've went through, but you can't really put your finger on what it is. So at the end of the day, although we're making data-driven decisions, you need to learn to trust your intuition too, because data and intuition is what's going to make you the most successful. Back to the data though, what I want you to do is I want you to pick 3 key metrics to track every week, whether it's revenue, sales, profit margins, lead conversions. The more you track, the smarter your decisions will be. So I want to recap the 6 traits of successful CEOs that we went over. The most successful CEOs make fast decisions. They value their time and delegate. They have a clear vision and they share it. They set aside time to work on the business and not just in it. They're seeking constant feedback to improve, and they're making decisions off of data. So here's my challenge to you. Pick just one of these traits and focus on it for the week, because it's the small changes in how you lead that are going to create massive impact over time. Thanks for tuning in to Upleveling. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more entrepreneurs like you discover the show. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit aligncpa.com for resources and updates. Until next time, keep leading, optimizing, and upleveling.